Hi everyone! In this video I'm going to share with you 5 signs that you could be in burnout and also 5 solutions on how to help you overcome burnout. In my practice a couple of years ago I actually experienced burnout myself, but I didn't actually realise I was in burnout, and I think this is quite a common thing that I see certainly through the coaching that I do and also my own personal experience. It can be really difficult to understand what's going on because there's so many other things that we can try and attribute to why we're feeling a certain way, or why we're feeling over emotional, or why we might be feeling like we just want to detach from life. So there are many different explanations or solutions that we could search out on the internet to help us understand ourselves a little bit more, but I'm going to narrow it down for you in this video just to give you some insight if you feel that you're in a burnout state and how this could be affecting you. So the first one is feeling frustrated, easily triggered, feeling anxiety or over emotional. And the reason that we can feel these high emotional states is because for many it's because they're suppressing their emotions. So if you're the kind of person who's not very good at expressing how you're feeling or expressing your emotions, and you sort of keep things to yourself, maybe you're sort of naturally introverted, that emotional energy needs an outlet. So if you're being pressured and pushed and feeling in a high state of overwhelm or exhaustion or under a lot of pressure, those emotions are going to start to kind of bubble up in your nervous system, and in order for them to try and get out in some way, it has to be through these emotional outbursts or through feeling sort of very anxious. You know, anxiety is very much a byproduct of suppressed emotion. So that's the reason why these high emotional states often kick in when we're in burnout. Number 2 is feeling constantly fatigued. And this is very much linked to the fact that your nervous system will be really activated. So when I say activated, we're talking cortisol, adrenaline, all of these chemicals that are sort of trying to help you, sort of give you energy, the fight-flight stage that we go through. Of course, there is the freeze stage, which I'll talk about, but when we're in that fight-flight mode, the body is literally thinking that you're being chased by a tiger, and so it will do all it can to help you to move through the danger. And this is really where the concerns can come in to becoming ill. It's like if the adrenaline and cortisol and, you know, these hormones are being pumped out into your system and they're staying in your system for too long. This is why people get ill and unwell. So that's something to be really mindful of. And I'm going to talk to you about how to work with that when we go into solutions. The third sign is procrastination, being unproductive, checking out on your phone more regularly, detachment from life, you know, those kinds of things where we're just feeling like we don't really have any interest in what we're doing anymore. Maybe there's no interest in, you know, the people we're in a relationship with, or friendships, socializing. All of those areas can start to come a little bit stale or static. And the more fatigued we're feeling, of course, the more that we're wanting to stay at home, get rest. You know, we're trying to find ways to help ourselves feel better. So then other sort of unhelpful habits can start to kick in. Doom scrolling on social media, drinking more than you usually would, or perhaps sort of unhelpful habits creeping in. Emotional eating is another classic sign of wanting to escape or numb the pain of a pressurizing busy day, amongst other things. But those are certainly some clues that this could be, you know, in a burnout phase if you are certainly resonating with more than 1 or 2 of these. The fourth one, which is really common, is unexplained physical symptoms, because the body and the mind work together synonymously. And so if the mind isn't happy and the mind is feeling overloaded and overworked and at a limit, the body's going to be responding to that. And in fact, the two are very interchangeable. So if there's a feeling or emotion that the body's feeling, such as being in a stress state, then the mind responds to that and releases certain hormones to help move you through that. And equally, the body is then in this constant state of needing to try and keep itself alive and keep the blood flowing, that this can then lead to physical symptoms. And again, physical symptoms can be very much related to emotional suppression, not feeling like you're expressing yourself in the way that you really need to. And so these feelings and emotions that get stuck start to manifest as aches, tension, joint pain. Certainly if this has been going on over a long period of time, it's again going back to that the body's in an unhealthy state of being in a fight, flight, freeze situation. And so there's something called the sympathetic nervous system that's just constantly kind of blasting out these hormones and trying to keep you alive. And so then the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system responsible for bringing down these stress hormones and bringing you into a relaxed state and helping you to come into a place of homeostasis, isn't being activated. It's like the body is in such an overwhelmed state of trying to keep itself alive. The parasympathetic nervous system actually doesn't even get a chance to try and help you. So that's why rest is really important, and being really mindful of any aches and pains. Of course, there could be other reasons and other things that are related to that. So do check with a medical professional if you are concerned about anything. The body is a very intelligent vessel, and it's trying to keep you it's trying to get you to homeostasis, but that can only happen if we allow it. So just to summarise, I'm just going to go through the 5 signs once more to tick them off, and then you can see if these resonate. So the first one is about feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, emotionally triggered and overly emotional. Number 2, feeling fatigued, feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you're getting a lot of sleep or not enough sleep, but your energy is still really low. Number 3, procrastination, a disinterest in your work or creative pursuits that you used to have an interest in but don't anymore. Knowing that you need to get on with certain work tasks but just find yourself completely distracting yourself and wanting to do other things. Number 4, escapist behaviours, scrolling on social media, perhaps buying things that you don't really need. Maybe you started drinking more in the evenings or have picked up a habit that you just feel isn't you usually. Emotional eating, and maybe fitness habits can go down as well when we're feeling that burnout. It's like there's no energy there to want to go to the gym or go for a run. And then number 5 is unexplained physical symptoms. That could be migraines, joint pain, joint ache, muscle tension, or just feeling as though your body is just completely seized up. That is a really very much a sign of tension in your body. So now I'm going to give you 5 solutions, and these are actually taken from some of the solutions that I took to when I was feeling I was in burnout, and also just some general tools and tips that I just know really work for both myself and my clients. So the first one is very obvious, which is rest and self-care. When you're a busy leader, when you're running your own business, when you've got a lot of high responsibility, it's very easy to completely deprioritize yourself in comparison to, say, family members or work colleagues, or hitting certain deadlines and meeting the needs of those that you care about. The thing is that you've got to put the mask on first. If we're talking about when we go on a flight and they tell you about putting the mask on first, in order for you to show up as your best self, or to show up as a version of you that people want to be around, you have to prioritize you and start to look at some of the things that you can do to improve your life, your self-care. And sometimes that is going to need to be compromise in terms of conversations with those that are around you, having a conversation about help and support that you need, and sort of being okay to reach out and ask for that, and know that you are totally valued enough and cared for that people will want to do that. People love to help other people. So if you're the kind of person who isn't very good at asking for help, here's your opportunity to practice. The number 2 is get help. Ask for help from specialists. So that could be going to see your medical professional. It could be going to see a naturopath or a nutritionist if you need help to look at your diet, to look at what you're eating, which is a big factor in helping you to feel better. It could also be reaching out to a therapist or a coach to help move through some trauma, to help to regulate your emotions, to help to bring some balance and equilibrium back into your nervous system. And actually burnout can be very much linked to past traumas and past stresses. The mind very much remembers, or at least, well, we think it's forgotten it maybe, or we try to sort of push it down or push it away, but the subconscious mind holds everything in there. So if you've experienced stress or trauma or situations in the past that have felt very uncomfortable, or you felt under pressure before in the past, or maybe you had a job where you lost your job because you couldn't cope, or something horribly went wrong and you're just really fearful of that happening again, not making enough money in your business if you take a step back, you know, all of these things really are kind of fears that are sort of locked into our subconscious. So it's really important to sort of be mindful of what that programming is going on in the back of your mind that is keeping you in this place or driving this behavior to have to keep going, to have to keep trying, to have to keep everyone happy. Number 3, really important one, this comes up a lot in leadership coaching that I do, and that is about setting healthy boundaries. We're not always very good, certainly if you're an empathic kind of leader or somebody who is a great people pleaser, you naturally gravitate to wanting to solve problems for everybody, and that puts an insurmountable amount of pressure on you, and this behaviour is going to burn you out eventually, because you can't save everyone and you can't be there for everyone. And you know, it's about time now to teach people how to catch their own fish rather than catching the fish for them. So this is a really common pattern that I see when I'm coaching leaders, is the lack of healthy boundaries, the lack of boundaries. And I'll probably need to do a separate video about what drives that behaviour. I've touched on it a little bit, but the most important thing is about really kind of recognising and valuing your time, recognising and valuing your recovery, and allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to say no or to start to delegate. So if you're feeling a sense of burnout or exhaustion or overwhelm, where in your role or in your work or with the tasks that you're doing can you really start to think about letting some of that go? Are you known as being the people pleaser person? Are you known as someone who just fixes everything? You're the great problem solver. That's all lovely, and I'm sure you've earned your stripes and your respect for that, but it's leading you to feel the way you are now if you're listening to this and you're resonating. So the most important thing here is for you to really tune in and help to understand what you need to do in order to set healthy boundaries. And like I say, that is the saying no nicely, it's the delegation, it's showing up to be someone who is a great leader because they can inspire others to make decisions for themselves. And it's handing the baton over. You know, people really respect that. And actually one of the kind of typical scenario comes up when a leader or a manager isn't relinquishing or delegating enough, and their direct reports don't feel that they're trusted, you know, but they get a real boost when you suddenly say, hey, I'm going to give you some more responsibility, and you know, it's a real boost for them, and obviously it solves a problem for you. So if that sounds like you, where can you start to build in healthy boundaries, say no politely? Maybe it's also about looking at your communication style and learning about how to articulate that. And if you do need any help with that kind of thing, I have a wonderful mind empowerment toolkit that gives you all the tools you need to help with building up self-confidence, self-belief, setting healthy boundaries, learning about, you know, the nervous system and how it works, beliefs, you know, they're another thing that really can kind of prevent us from making changes and driving dysfunctional behaviours. So I'll put a link to that below in this video. Number 4, I've touched on it a little bit, but nutrition. Make sure you're getting the right nutrients in your body, that you're eating the right food, you're making time to eat properly. We think that we're these kind of superheroes who can just run on empty or cups of coffee, but unfortunately the body does need fuel. It needs B vitamins, it needs D vitamins, it needs magnesium, it needs you know, a multivitamin perhaps, you know, what those were certainly some things that I had to look into. Certainly B deficiency is one of the kind of most common reasons that people feel burnout, because B vitamins actually look after your nervous system and give it energy and give it a boost. So if your diet or the way you eat needs some improvement, this will be the tool or tip for you that you can use to take away. And then number 5, for the females out there, are you in your 40s? Are you in your 50s? Perimenopause, menopause. This is a very classic contribution to burnout. And of course, most of the time in those times of our lives, you know, we're at the pinnacle of our career, or, you know, we've worked our way up and we've got a lot of responsibility. We've also had a family, and so there's responsibility there, and it's all kind of there, it's on your shoulders. And then obviously the body's going through biological change. Perimenopause can start as early as 35, but most typically it can really begin in the early 40s. And then obviously if you are over 50, again, it's about looking at hormone balance and checking that everything's kind of working and ticking along as it should. I'm going to do a separate video about that. But what I will say is that perimenopause, or having gone through menopause, can still, you know, certainly contribute to feelings of burnout. So it's definitely worth getting that checked as well. So I hope this video has been helpful. I'll leave some useful links below. Feel free to comment, share if any of this resonates and how it's helped you. And I know for me, when I recovered from my own burnout, what worked for me was I just had to reduce my workload. I fed my body what it needed, and I actually ended up looking into perimenopause solutions, because I realised that actually at the age of 42, that's what was actually happening for me. So I hope that's been helpful, and another video will come certainly around the topic of perimenopause, because that's an area I'm really passionate about. Take care for now.